To anybody who is not a Montreal Canadiens fan watching this video, I wanted to open up the entire conversation with a simple question. Hey, do Montreal Canadiens fans overrate their prospects? It's very well possible that your immediate, instinctual, reactionary impulse was to say yes! They absolutely do! Habs fans, especially in this generation's worth of Montreal Canadiens hockey, have had very little to get excited about prospect-wise, up until, let's just say, a few years ago. For quite some time, the top prospects in the system were labeled out as guys like Louis LeBlanc, Michael McCarron. You had guys like Jesperi Kotkaniemi and Alex Galchenyuk tossed in there. Some of these guys were okay at some points, but for the most part, Montreal Canadiens fans have been a little bit unlucky when it comes to their prospects, and it's always filled with a lot of optimism. Like, I get it, Canadiens fans thought that Alex Galchenyuk would be a lot better than he ended up becoming for the Habs. You could say the same thing about Ryan Poehling. You could say the same thing about Mikhail Sergachev, although that was a little bit of a different situation. Noah Juleson comes to mind. That guy wasn't any great for Montreal. Lots of guys the Habs prospect pool has had have not really been all too great. So you can understand why, for Montreal Canadiens fans, it gets a little bit tough defending these guys and still trying to convince others, hey, no, Jesperi Kotkaniemi is a fine player, he'll become better in the future, and then he gets offer sheeted, and then it becomes even worse, and it still looks bad for Montreal because they took the guy third overall. Either way, it's only been recently that the Montreal Canadiens actually have prospects to cheer for and get excited for in a very legitimate way. From the Cole Caulfields to the Cayden Goulies to the Lane Hudsons and other players taken out like Slafkovsky. These are guys that actually do boast good potential into the long-term future, and I'd say a lot of Canadiens fans were right in going out there and hyping these players up. But what about the guy taken in the 5th overall spot in 2024? What about Ivan Demidov? Because in this video, what I wanted to do is go over some comments made about Demidov from one Scott Wheeler on the Sick podcast with Tony Marinaro. Now, of course, I started this entire video out by asking the question as to whether or not Canadiens fans overrate their prospects. But the fact of the matter is, Scott Wheeler isn't necessarily a Habs fan. He does stuff for The Athletic, he is their main prospect writer, he does the mock drafts, he does a lot of stuff. But when it comes to the comments that he had made about Demidov on the recent Sick podcast, here is what he had to say. I think that Ivan Demidov is a star. He is the most purely skilled player in this class, Macklin Celebrini included, in terms of pure puck skills. He is one of the most talented one-on-one individual creators that I've ever scouted in 11 years of doing this. And okay, if you wanted to take a look at the timeline, Scott Wheeler started doing this scouting thing 11 years ago, we'll say 2013. Let's give him the bigger benefit of the doubt. 2013-14, the first season, after Nathan MacKinnon. Who were the top prospects in that time frame up until today? Well, in 2014, you had Aaron Ekblad, Sam Reinhart, Leon Draisaitl. Draisaitl back in 2014, nobody really thought that he'd be the monster that he is today, 120-plus point guy, consistent 50-goal guy. So I think he was a little bit of a late bloomer. In 2015, of course, you had Connor McDavid, who ended up torching the NHL for decades to come. 2015 was also filled with a lot of other talented players like Mitch Marner, for example, Brock Besser, Travis Konechny, Matthew Barzal. 2016, you had yourselves Austin Matthews, Patty Laine, and then some other players after, like Clayton Keller, who also is a trickster. Going over to 2019, you've got the Trevor Zegras. Going over to 2023, you've got Connor Bedard. Ivan Demidov has been mentioned by Wheeler to being the most talented one-on-one guys in the past 11 years. Demidov may not necessarily be better than a Connor Bedard, but he is one of the best. And the comments on this Reddit post go out there and essentially encapsulate all of our thoughts about this. These are things that I never remotely uttered about a Habs prospect in my lifetime. Yeah, you know the video we made a few days ago asking whether or not Ivan Demidov is the most talented Montreal Canadiens drafted prospect since Guy Lafleur? I think that idea still holds up today. I don't know about you, but I'll stick with it. Another reply says this: I'm so used to being disappointed that I'm ready for this guy to become Nikita Scherbak. Meh. Gouli, Suzuki, Caulfield, Slavkovsky, we have had some players make it lately, so there is some optimism, I'd say, from Canadiens fans to acknowledge where the team has gone the past few years with their development. And honestly, when you talk about the idea of Demidov being better than Celebrini, this is an interesting thought because I did see some people in the scouting world, particularly I think Sam McGilligan on the Scouting podcast, who actually did have Ivan Demidov as his number one prospect over Celebrini. Because the thing is, when you want to talk about ceiling, that's where this entire argument boils down to. How far can they go, and what is their prime? Macklin Celebrini has the potential to be a number one center who is sort of a mix between Sidney Crosby and, let's say, Jack Hughes. He's got fantastic two-way ability, and it adds to his overall value. His offensive game may not round itself out as a McDavid or a Matthews, but he could be that Jack Hughes. He could be an 80-90 point guy, 95 points in a prime season, whilst producing some incredible two-way hockey and being sort of that reliable, every situations kind of mold. That's fantastic, and you need a number one center like that to help your hockey team win playoff games and playoff series. But when it comes to individual puck skills, when it comes to one-on-one, oopsie-daisy, the puck's through your legs and I've got it again type of ability, when it comes to isolation and dangling ability, Macklin Celebrini is not number one. Ivan Demidov is that guy. It's just he's not a center. He doesn't have the same two-way capability, and he is not the guy whom I think a lot of fans would expect to be in every situation. He's probably not going to play on the penalty kill. He's not going to be the best along the boards, but if you give him time and space, you give him even just a small seconds worth of time and space, Ivan Demidov can make you look stupid. He can embarrass you by making you fall on your behind. Ivan Demidov is one of the most individually skilled and 1v1 talented prospects we have seen in years, and he is the number one guy of this year's draft. He's going to have to develop some of these skills as he gets older. He did put himself in a tough spot because the MHL really isn't renowned for stellar defensive play, but Ivan Demidov adjusted to that very well, using his skills and his overall goal-scoring, point-producing ability to just attack everything that moves. This guy was so aggressive in the offensive zone, and it led to some fantastic highlights. Who knows how that's going to translate at higher levels of play? Who knows how the point production is going to translate? Will he be better than Nikita Kucherov, who is also in the MHL? Will he be better than Tarasenko, Kuznetsov, maybe even Mishkov? There are a lot of odds, a lot of Russian guys going out there and putting up numbers in the MHL or other junior leagues when being drafted. Demidov just happened to be one of the top guys, and you can say his offensive creativity combined with those hands make him one of the best prospects at this point in their careers. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about Ivan Demidov potentially being better than Macklin Celebrini, a guy whom I'd say, if you wanted to talk about importance, okay, like the Sidney Crosby Jack Hughes center is going to be more important than Patrick Kane. But who would you say is the better player? Like, who would you say is the higher ceiling player? Who would you say is the best offensive player? Maybe, just maybe, the winger with incredible dangles, creativity, and offensive productivity can best out that two-way force who also has fantastic offensive ability himself, but to a potentially lesser degree. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as to whether or not Celebrini or Demidov will be better than one another into the next few years. What are your thoughts on the comments made by Scott Wheeler as to how Demidov is that number one guy? The comment section is your floor. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.